So this is probably something you've experienced. You're having a really bad day in the range, you're shooting really badly, you don't know what's wrong. So you ask your coach to look at you, to tell you exactly what's wrong, and you suddenly shoot better. How do we do it? Well, you see, your coach has superpowers. Okay, so maybe we don't have superpowers, but coaches with enough experience will have a highly refined set of skills. So today we'll go through 5 high-level coaching skills, and this is here to help aspiring coaches as well as to help you, the average archer, to identify the things that we look for when you analyze form and we give coaching lessons. Our first coaching superpower is mind reading. Now, archery is said to be like somewhere between 50 to 90% mental, and a large part of that is because you have to mentally discipline yourself to do the exact same shot 100 times in a row. Now, to do that, you have to have a clear thought process or a clear shot process. Now, as a coach, what I do is I make sure that all my archers are ingrained with a shot process. What that means is that I know that you're not following your process. So how do we do this? We know that from a psychological point of view, it takes a certain amount of time to go from one conscious thought to another. So when we see archers shoot quicker than normal, we can tell that they're not paying attention. Focus, concentration and presence are crucial things that archers must keep in mind. You can't go on autopilot. So when we train people, when I train people, they have to say a certain number of steps. Now each step is unique to the archer, but these are things they must say. It might be things like set, set up, draw, other steps in the shot process, or it might be things like back tension, anchor. Whatever the words are said, they must say it before they do it. So what happens is that when they accelerate faster than usual, they might set up faster than usual and draw and anchor and shoot, but we can tell they're not really thinking about what they're doing. We can tell because things slip. They start from a different anchor point, or they start from a different set position. They execute the expansion half a second earlier than usual. These are the signs that we know you're not following the process you practice. Archery isn't necessarily about shooting a better shot than your last shot. It's about knowing what your good shot is and repeating that good shot. When you don't go through the steps that execute that good shot, then you have to go through your steps. So again, as the coach, I can tell from a timing perspective that you haven't told yourself what to do. When you're standing on the shooting line and you see people who are just spacing out, they're staring there, what they might be doing is going through what they need to do to execute their ideal shot. And it may be saying their steps. When I train people, I make them say their steps out loud. Many people prefer to do it in their heads, but as long as they actually hear the words in their head, they are going to execute that command. It's when they don't say those steps out loud or in their head, it's when they start skipping steps. So part of our mind reading superpower is knowing when you have or haven't said your steps. This also extends to common faults like being distracted. We can probably tell from a bad shot what you were thinking of. And it may be you were thinking of your last arrow, therefore your current shot veered towards that last arrow. All these things betray what your mental focus is, and it's fairly easy to tell if you are distracted. Coaching superpower number 2 is X-ray vision. When we look at archer shoot, we don't really see the skin deep superficial stuff. I mean, anyone can post a photo or a video on the internet and say, look at my form, and you get a lot of people nitpicking things like the grip or the posture or the anchor point or whatever. So there's a lot of superficial diagnosis, but coaches will see things in a structural way, not literally your skeleton or your muscles. We can kind of see that and feel that, but more so we will look for lines. Archery is actually less about aiming and more about alignment, because ultimately if you point your arrow in the right direction, then the arrow will go there. Barring execution errors and other small factors like wind, as long as you point the bow in the right direction, you're going to hit somewhere in that general direction. The problem though is when you don't allow yourself to align in the right way. So when we watch, we look for various different axes and lines and postures. No doubt if you've seen coaching videos or form checks, or even have a good coach work with you, they'll show you photos or pictures. They'll draw lines on your form, and they'll show you your spine, they'll show you your elbow alignment, they'll show you your posture. That's what we'll look at. So often you'll see me, if I'm coaching you, you'll probably see me stand behind you. I'm kind of going up and down and trying to gaze at your elbow and look at your alignment and see how your back is. That's what we'll look for. So some of the common faults that we see in terms of alignment are things like back. So we'll look for, again, I'm a right-handed shooter, the arch of the back. Many people will tend to lean on the back of their heels, put more weight on, and start leaning backwards. So I'm trying to see that straight spine. I'm going from arching to straight. And this is coach vision from the back. From the front, you can't really see it. But from the back, we'll see that people are either arching backwards or have that straight, tense core, maybe a slight hunch, or we say be humble a lot. So make sure you be humble, you put your chest down, and that way you don't have the proud, open chest and arching back. We also look a lot for your elbow alignment. So that is how clean you are in coming in on target in line with the arrow. If your elbow is sticking out like a chicken wing, then it's probably going to be a bad shot. It's going to drive to the side. You're going to pluck the string the way out. Whereas if the elbow straight with the arrow, it'll come straight back with cleaner, more efficient shots. These are the structural things that a coach will look for. So if they're standing around looking at you funny, they're probably examining your shoulders, your arms, your back, and so on. Coaching superpower number 3 is motion sensing. Now, archery has a lot of micro movements, but a good coach can tell if you've done those movements. And there are a couple which really stick in mind. The first one is the expansion step. Now, for many people doing archery and starting off, the expansion is a bit exaggerated. You might reach your full draw, and then when you reach full draw, you make this big extra motion to expand outwards, or you might move your hand back further. Neither of these are particularly great. They have the right idea, but the execution isn't particularly great. Now, with a proper expansion, the motion is minimal. Now, we have to remember that a good archer, especially using an Olympic recurve bow with a clicker, they are about a millimeter off the clicker. So it doesn't take much to squeeze and make it click, and so you execute your shot. Now, with that said, any gross movement, any large movement will mean that you are so far off the clicker, you require that movement to execute your shot. So really, the expansion isn't so great where we can see it, but we can feel it. So my advice when people trying to expand is think about the expansion more so than do the expansion. The expansion is an internal movement less than the external movement. There is movement, but it shouldn't be noticeable. I shouldn't see you do it, but I should know that you've done it. The second tiny micro movement we look out for is your breathing. So a lot of people actually forget to breathe. Archery tends to be quite high anxiety because you're trying to hit the target. It's not relaxing at all. Now, actually, it is relaxing, but if you're trying to score, that can be a little stressful. So people might hold their breath naturally. You breathe in when you shoot, and then you look at the target, and you're tense, and you're holding it there, and then you shoot. That's pretty bad because because you're holding your breath, your shoulders lift up, your chest lifts up. Number 2, your heart rate goes up as well, so there's less stability and a lot more anxiety in your shot. So in a good shot process, you breathe out. And there are several different ways to breathe, but I normally use what's called the in, out, out. So you breathe in before you draw, you breathe out when you draw, to about say half to 2/3 empty, and then you slowly breathe out for the remainder as you are coming on target. You go, and then as you breathe out, you start to relax, your heart rate goes down, your chest drops, your shoulders drop, so you have a more stable shot. So when I see people shoot and they have what looks like a high stress, high tension shot, the first thing I ask them is, you didn't breathe, did you? Like, I know they didn't breathe because there's certain movements. I'll see the chest and the shoulders drop. If it's rising, they're holding their breath, getting more stressed out. I can tell when they haven't been breathing. So often a reminder, it might be the rest of the shot will look and feel good. They've got everything set up, good timing, but they have a high stress release. It looks violent, looks fast, and it doesn't quite come out right. And I told them, breathe out, like relax. And once they include the breathe step again, they'll start to normalize their actions. It becomes cleaner and less stressful. So that's what we can look out for. Coaching superpower number 4 is pattern recognition. Now, here's one thing which really distinguishes a coach from someone who is casually observing your form either in real life or online. When someone sees you shoot, as I said before, they will nitpick small things which visually stick out. Obviously, obvious flaws like the grip being too tight, leaning, wrong anchor, those are obvious things. But really, you can't assess a single shot. You have to understand what the archer has been doing over a period of time, whether it's the entire the entire session, or ideally, if you know the archer in real life, as a coach probably would, then watch them shoot over a matter of weeks, months, if not years. Because an archer will grow to know what their archer is doing, what their preferences are, what their specific quirks or nuances are, and therefore also recognize when they've done something different. Now, at the extreme end, I might look at someone who's been shooting for a few months and I've been training them. I'll walk by behind them, watch one shot, I can tell something is wrong. Something is very, very different. And of course, I might watch several shots or several ends and go, what's different about this shot? And I'm looking for things like head position, anchor point, elbow position. It might be 1% off, but I can tell something is different. And that's something a coach will do when they work with you very closely. And it's not my job to tell you that go back to what you did before. I want to investigate, 1, are you aware that it's different? And number 2, do you want it to be different? An example of a tiny detail is one of my learners seemed to have a different head position. It went from you can barely see it, went from here to here. There's virtually no difference, but I'm watching from the side and I see the string is not quite on the anchor point. Something's not quite right. This is one shot where I go, this is so different. It's only about 1 millimeter difference, but to me, walking by, that is something I've never seen them do before. And after a few troubleshooting ends and figuring things out, what I concluded was that this person was actually moving their head because the sun was in a different position. So I've learned that from about 1 millimeter of head movement, the sun is a distraction which causes this chain of form changes which leads them to shoot differently. Not necessarily worse, but to shoot differently. And that's the exact sort of thing I'm talking about. That a good coach who knows their archer well will point out something that is out of place. Something which, if you're getting coaching from a casual online person or from a fellow shooter who doesn't know your form, you might miss these details. So that's one of our coaching skills, is knowing the archer so well that we can tell when you're doing something different. And our last coaching superpower for this video is precognition. We can tell the future. Not really, but what we definitely can do, and to an extent the athlete, the archer can do as well, is to know a good shot will happen before you even let it go. So I might be standing behind you as a coach and I'm using all my superpowers, my mind reading, my x-ray vision, and I am watching things line up and I'll go, and I'll do it out loud to my line, but of course the competition, I'm not going to do that. I can't hear me, I can't really say that out loud. But I know this is my checkbox. That's a green light, that's a green light. I see the stance come straight. I see the elbow come right in line, right at the optimal point. I feel a perfect tempo. I know this shot will be gold. And no surprise, it hits gold. And might surprise the archer to go, wow, that was the best shot ever. And it's great, it is the best shot ever, but your coach already knew that. That's our ability to predict the shot, because we can see what you can't see. You might feel it, but we can see it. And having that extra set of eyes who's observing you from a different angle can help inform you that you are in line or not in line. And the feedback can be immediate. I'm looking for that slight differences, as we said before, a slight elbow difference or a slight head position difference. But once we feel that things are definitely in place, we can pretty much walk away and we know the result of the shot. And that's a great feeling to have for both the coach and the archer. Now, as the Spider-Man saying goes, with great power comes great responsibility. And while we are talking about archery coaching skills, these skills and knowledge can be misapplied. It's really important as a coach that we maintain a constructive, positive, optimistic approach. It's very easy to misuse these skills and nitpick things and be non-constructive, just tear things apart and not offer solutions. We shouldn't be imposing one specific way of shooting to somebody else because we might be missing why they shoot that. These skills and observations should be used as a platform in which you engage with the learner, not dictate what has to be done, but to help the learner take ownership of their actions, of their process, of their archery. So that's why with great usage of these skills and honing these skills and working positively with your own archers, that's what builds that skill level, and that's what makes it good for you and the athlete. Anyway, that's my little talk on archery coaching skills. If you want to know more about my perspectives and insights and takes on coaching and archery coaching, feel free to ask questions below. I do hope this was somewhat entertaining, but at least informing and helpful. Thank you all for watching, and hopefully we'll see you all next time.